Welcome back. If you're just joining us, you're watching Sunday edition here on KTN News. As we have been talking about for the last few days, it is a season of promises, and major political parties and coalition have been or did launch their party manifestos ahead of the 2017 election on the 8th of August. Let's start with, let's listen into what the Jubilee team had to say in their manifesto in their quest to be re-elected on the 8th of August.
We have a superior plan, a superior agenda, program for our country that our competitors can only copy.
We shall ensure that every citizen is connected to reliable and affordable electricity, as you have already heard, having proven that point by doubling in 4 years the number of Kenyans connected to electricity, and that has been done since Kenya's independence. Our objective is once again to achieve 100% transition from primary to secondary school. And this we intend to start in January of 2018, after having made the necessary investment that every single Kenyan child who graduates through our TTIs or through university will be guaranteed a government-sponsored internship.
We will move job creation in our country from 800,000 every year to 1.3 million jobs every year.
It is our intention to ensure that within the next 5 years, we make Kenya food secure. We have shown our intention to this end by the fertilizer subsidy. When the Jubilee government came into power, Kenyan farmers were buying a bag of fertilizer at Kenya shilling 6,000. Today, as a result of the government subsidy program, Kenyan farmers are able to access that same fertilizer for 1,500 shillings, which has greatly increased the capacity of our farmers to produce.
All right, that was during a very colorful launch of the Jubilee Party manifesto as they seek re-election on the 8th of August. So just to break down some of the promises they made: economic growth, promising that. Unlike what happened in 2013, they did not give a figure of how much they want to increase or grow the economy by every year. Reducing cost of living for Mwananchi. That will be a hard, maybe, will it be a hard sell concerning, seeing as what has been happening. They did promise a 6-lane highway toll road from Mombasa to Nairobi. They did promise to expand the SGR, of course, complete construction of new power plants, improving Kenya's global ranking on doing business indicators, and installing street lights in all urban centers. Just some of the promises they did make. First of all, before we get into some of these, Dismas, between the two main protagonists in this election, NASA and Jubilee, who had the more relevant manifesto at a glance?
Well, you know, one would have expected that Jubilee was going to launch a scorecard to tell us what they've done, not a manifesto. Because nowhere in the world would you have a serving administration launching a manifesto, making promises. Because what they're doing right now is they're ruling in the future tense, telling us what we are going to do. And you saw the president and his deputy carefully dodged the very relevant bullets. You've indicated, you recall, rather last time they told us they're going to grow the economy by double digits. This time round, they decided to tiptoe around the issue. They didn't indicate at what rate the economy is going to grow. And then the president indicates that in the next 5 years, it's going to make Kenya food secure. And right now, we are suffering from food insecurity. So one wonders, if today they're not able to make Kenya food secure, how will they make Kenyans believe that if given another 5 years, they're going to make us food secure? You've raised another issue of the road they want to push from Mombasa to Nairobi. we were told the essence of having SGR is to remove trucks from those roads and use SGR to transport these cargo. So again, why would you want to expand that road? When you look at it
maybe
now,
for me when I'm driving down to Mombasa.
For future, but you see, we don't have an abundance of resources. We have got scarce resources which have to be used for so many projects. No. That's why when you look at the NASA, or rather, when you look at the Jubilee Manifesto in a nutshell, it was very good in color. You saw the lighting, it was well done, event management well done, but the content was horrible. Because for a Kenyan who was watching that Jubilee Manifesto, or now scorecard launch, what they wanted to do was the president to talk about the cost of living. Infotrack just did an opinion poll, and they said the biggest responsibility for the next president is to address the cost of living. So that was not captured by President Kenyatta. Instead, what the deputy president did, and he's got this gift of the gab, he can sell this ice to an Eskimo. When questioned about the 5 stadia, he said, forget about the 5 stadia. We're going to give you 9. Now, one would have expected for this manifesto launch or the scorecard to be done at one of the newly put up stadium. So that they say, when we took office, we told you we are going to have 5 stadia. We are launching this manifesto in one of those stadia. So when, in a nutshell, when you look at Jubilee, what the president was trying to tell us is that I'm very good in my development agenda, and you can trust me to deliver a few infrastructure projects, the cost notwithstanding. They have not told us whether they'll be able to sweat the Kenyan shilling to give us value for these projects. And it also confirmed that most of the decisions they make are actually procurement-driven. There's nobody who has sat down with Kenyans to ask whether or not, after coming up with the SGR, whether again we need to expand that Mombasa-Nairobi road, or whether we need to put up a road going to Kisii or Mandera to open up other areas. So really, and you know, it's a confirmation on what Jubilee has been telling us, that it's all scissor, no stake. Because when you go to that manifesto itself, you are left yawning.
All right. Hesbon.
Yes.
What is your take on this? Content-wise, and in terms of, from a communication point of view, which one was more vibrant?
Well, I think the Jubilee one was a lot more pompous from a communication point of view. It would actually arrest you. You know, if you're doing something else, you'd sit down and watch. But in terms of content, I would agree with Dismas that, you know, any sitting government that is seeking to extend its tenure in power needs to have a scorecard. But having said that, I think, you know, the 3 pillars that Jubilee had, the 3 transformations, to a large extent, should actually give them credit for having something that, if actualized, would actually transform the lives of Kenyans. When you talk about creating 1.3 jobs, I teach in a university, and I know how a big deal that is, especially providing internship. And, you know, I think in this election is going to be won by, you know, a select few Kenyans who are going to look at issues. And if you look at the number of Kenyans who are jobless or who are just about to graduate from universities or in their later years, if they read certain things in the manifesto, they would look at the Jubilee Manifesto as a little bit friendly, you know, especially to an educated elite. But in terms of separating the two, I don't think there's much of a difference. If you look at the way Jubilee is looking at health and the way NASA is looking at health, for instance, you realize that they're basically trying to make health services affordable to Kenyans. It's only that they're doing it in 2 different ways. Jubilee, with a continuation of the free maternity health care, they are now expanding it, and they're giving mothers an opportunity to access health care for 1 year. Now, if you look at what NASA is, which is good, whatever Jubilee is doing is good, and it is targeting a demographic that I think should be targeted with free health care. You look at what NASA is doing, NASA is not specific on any group, but whatever NASA is providing is actually, you know, opening, for the simple reason that it is looking at how they can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. 1, provide health services to all Kenyans at affordable prices. And then secondly, in this provision, they're giving a clear indication that this provision will help, you know, health facilities provide quality services for them to get money to even improve the services. Rather than give these health facilities money, they're actually pegging it on how many patients are going to come to your hospital. And if you attract more patients, then we are going to pay for these patients as a government. And if you attract more, it means you're going to attract more resources to build capacity, which I think is out of this world, and it's a good thing. So you look at health, you realize that both of them are actually having the same way of doing the same thing. You look at education, again, it's the same. They're addressing the same thing in two different ways. And I think it's incumbent upon them now to sell the manner in which they're going to address what is encapsulated in their manifesto.
On education, now that you mentioned that, the Jubilee, or that is on NASA, so I'll come to that. That is concerning the laptop project. But Mutinda, economic growth, the promise to grow the Kenyan economy, but your party did not give a figure. And you have not addressed what has been happening in the last 4 years. What should Kenyans do with what you promised in 2013 and what you have delivered or not delivered, yet you're promising again to grow the economy?
You know, people are saying that we should have given a scorecard and not a manifesto, but the truth of the matter is that both were given. If you listened keenly, it was this what we've done, and we intend to take it further by, if you've listened about the connectivity, if you've listened about the infrastructural development, because you cannot ask for 5 more years so that you do what you did in the last 5 years. You have to, of course, they even admitted that there are things that didn't work out, but you have to give them some credit for being responsive. I want to give you an example. Let's talk about stadiums, for instance. They probably, Jubilee, we were late, but the work has started. I'm aware that Makueni, the 10,000-seater, the groundbreaking of the stadium has taken place. But the question is this. In 1996, Kenya was to host the African Cup of Nations, and we were not able. Why were we not able? Because we did not have facilities. For those who remember, that was the Africa Cup of Nations that was hosted by the newly, democratized South Africa, because it was ready. Even coming from apartheid, it was that ready. But Kenyans had won that slot. Now, as we speak, there is a tournament that is meant to be held here in next year. And the biggest challenge, we are actually at risk of losing it. What is the issue? And probably we will, unless some few things are banned. Because if they are strict, we will not be able to host that tournament.
Yeah, that is
that's Chan. And this is a sporting nation. Sports creates a lot of opportunities for very many young Kenyans. NASA had nothing to say about that. At least Jubilee is insisting that actually now forget the 5 we promised in the other 5 years. Now we have added 4 more, and we are going to...
But don't you think that was a dismal performance in terms of the 5 that were promised? Because
that's what I've agreed. Yes. And first is how many studies of the 5 have we done groundbreaking? I think there must be something happening in Kipchoge Keino. It was one of the 5. Then now Makueni, it has been launched.
So when you're promising 5, it meant not in the 5-year term, but in 10 years.
First, so that we don't dwell on that, I have admitted, and even the leadership has admitted, that okay, fine, on that we fell short, but we have not dropped the dream. And we have actually made it bigger. And you can understand because you can only do what your resources allow you. There have been a lot of...
And if I can mention, the sports has a way of creating jobs, a lot of jobs.
Like I've said correctly. And that's why I've said that I want to give them credit for being responsive. Right. That is an issue that needs to be addressed. Right. And on the contrary, NASA has not had anything to say about that. Because, some of these tournaments, it's not just about sports. It's also about economies. You can imagine the number of people that these people bring, what that means to the hotel industry, what that means to the very many other sectors that depend on visitors coming. Right. We have been losing this opportunity. There's a reason why people host this tournament. It's not just about the sports per se. The trickle effects, the benefits that come with hosting such an event are very huge. As at now, Kenya is quite a big country in this continent, but when it comes to the capacity to do some of these things, we fall way below average. Actually, there are very many other smaller African countries that have got better infrastructure than we are, yet we are a much bigger economy. So we need to move in that direction, and for that, I give Jubilee credit. And not for shying off, because they also had a choice to shy off. They didn't. They admitted, okay, fine, we have not given the 5. We are in the process, but actually by the time we get to 2022, we'll make sure they are 9, probably to compensate for the falling short.
All right.
Yes.
Before I go to you, Prof,
let
me ask Mutinda something that Dismas did ask. The sense of building a dual carriageway from Mombasa to Nairobi, yet there has been, you've already built the standard gauge railway. What is your take on that?
This must need to understand one thing. Kenya is growing. And as we speak, there are very many people who are working in Nairobi who do not reside in Nairobi. Those people need to have corridors of bringing them to work and taking them back. Some of the areas where we have vast land, you might laugh, but it's a fact. If you go along Mombasa Road, if there's an area now, Kitengela, you know what is happening, you know what is happening in Rongai. So the area that is now remaining is the area with vast land that can be developed and that can be used to even create residential and commercial. Konza, ICT, that's why Konza, there's a thinking behind Konza being there. What would be wrong with making movement easy? There is nothing wrong with that because cargo has been taken to the rail and a good chunk of the people. But there are other very many reasons that, you know, for instance, if we had that kind of road, I can be commuting to Nairobi from Salama, and you know how far Salama is as at now. But because of the jam now, you cannot make it. But with a dual, I can actually live comfortably there, and instead of paying rent in Nairobi, I'll be fueling my car. So those are the things that he needs to look at. Actually, it's not just about that. If you go to, like, for instance, in Nairobi, right. I'm happy about what is happening towards Rongai. Kitengela, there is need to expand that road. Kangundo Road, there is need to actually make Kangundo Road dual. It is not just about cargo. It is also about movement of
the people.
Prof, yes.
Jubilee promises.
Actually, I want to look at the core differences. For me, the core characteristic of the NASA manifesto is justice and equity. It is not about methods of implementation. They are saying, yes, you plan to do all this, but we plan to do it within the context of everybody getting what they are entitled to, rather than the Jubilee core is peace and prosperity. Go on like that, we continue looting, we continue marginalizing, we continue everything. To me, those are the two distinct differences. Now, when it comes to the individual elements like the pledges,
Jubilee now, we'll come to NASA.
I'm coming to Jubilee.
All right.
You see, when Jubilee is not willing to submit a scorecard, it means they're refusing to be accountable. They're refusing to be held accountable for pledges they made. At that time, in my view, they were not committed to those pledges because the election was about ICC. It was not about the manifesto. The manifesto was a formality. And it was like an afterthought. Put out whatever you can put. Let's do what we can do. But the best thing is to get money to secure ourselves leverage for getting an advantage for the second term. Now, there is an important observation that I want to make. When it comes to all these pledges, Jubilee has a tradition, all right, of giving priority to mega projects. Because with the inbuilt and accepted corruption, that is where the juice is. Now, it is not done that Mukua Kitili is going to benefit. It's all about how do you entrench this group that wants things to go on, hivyo, let it go on like that so that you can build benefit. So for me, their pledges at the moment are illusionary because they don't intend, since they're trying to escape from accountability in phase 1, what makes them want to be accountable in phase 2? It's all just maneno.
Thanks for those thoughts. It is now 11 o'clock East African time. You're watching Sunday edition here on KTN News. When we come back, we shall speak about the opposition National Super Alliance manifesto, which was launched this past week as well as the Jubilee one. And then after that, we'll make a very scientific comparison of what the two means and what stands out from each of the two manifestos. Don't go too far. This is Sunday edition.